CMPRadio.net, the voice of Chester.
Hi everybody, my name is Donna, also known as Donna Janel, CEO and founder of Parenting with a Purpose. Our strive here at the podcast is to reach every home, whether it's single moms, married, single dads, whatever it is, foster parents, whatever, just bringing the ownership and responsibility and nobility back into parenting. Get comfortable with uncomfortable conversations. All parents need some help and guidance, and I'm just here to be a guide. Hey everybody, welcome back to Parenting with a Purpose. I am your host, Donna Janel, where we bring back the responsibility, nobility, and beauty back into parenting. As you know, as I always say, parenting is not for the weak. Parenting is very diverse. It comes in all ages, all sizes, all genders. If you are a foster parent, step parent, adoptive parent, doesn't matter. If you're responsible for raising someone's child or your own child, you are definitely a parent. Sometimes aunts act as parents. As you know, I'm an aunt, but I'm a mother as well. So as you know, like I said, parenting is not for the weak, and we have been having some heavy topics here. We at Parenting with Purpose, we do engaging topics that are almost like taboo, or topics that people don't really want to talk about in parenting. The old saying is, what happens in my house stays in my house. So we don't really get a chance, particularly in our community, to be able to share information or even speak up on some information to be able to help one another. And I feel like it takes a village to raise children. It takes a village to raise adults. So here at Parenting with Purpose, our aim is for us to bring back the responsibility, the beauty, and nobility back into parenting, because parenting is hard, but it's such a beautiful thing. After you get through those teenage years, I'm just telling you, that's when parenting became a little bit more beautiful for me. So as you know, this month, the topic has been healing our wounds, healing our broken pieces, so that we don't bleed on our children. You know that whatever we deal with, our children are the reflection of what we are dealing with or what we are not dealing with. So as you know, all week, all month, we've had guests on here talking about how parenting is so important and how healing ourselves is even more important, so that our children can really have a hope in the future. My theme is parents are the bows and our children are arrows. So however we dress them, however we equip them, they will land wherever they need to land. It may not be today, may not be tomorrow, but we certainly have to be able to give them the tools to be able to land properly, right? So here at Parenting Purpose, we just address those topics. And tonight, we are, again, addressing it. We're rounding out the month. This is the last Thursday in October, and we're rounding out this month with, I told y'all when I go live, I'll be stuttering sometimes. We're rounding out the month with the same topic of wellness, wholeness, how to heal ourselves, how to repair ourselves so that our children don't have to deal with the things that we dealt with, or we miss things in our children because we're dealing with some other issues that we have not addressed. So tonight I have the one and only Tracey Walker on here tonight. Hi. So as many of you know, I've talked about her last week actually on the show, and she's been on a guest on the show before. Tracey Walker is also known as my bonus mother, who I've met when I was 21 and literally was able to nurture me and make me to the woman that I am today. So I wanted to have her on the show because even though Tracey doesn't, I'm going to say Tracey for the show, Mom, so it's not. That's fine. That's fine. Even though she doesn't have any biological children of her own, but I feel like she's such a good, a positive mentor, a role model. And even though I'm not your biological child, you have certainly helped me and nurtured me to be who I am today. So I thought it was important because I think you have a lot to say about wellness and wholeness, particularly not just in parenting, but in us as people. So how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Okay. I'm getting a softer side.
This is going to be fun.
I'm getting a softer side tonight. How you doing? All right. So, the month we've been talking about the wellness and wholeness and how to really repair our wounds and our broken pieces so that we don't bleed over our children. What do you think about that? And tell me how do you feel about the topic, or what's your take on it?
Oh. Well, I think it's important that people get whole, right, when you're trying to parent, because you will bleed on your children. If we don't transform we're going to transmit to the person, to our child. So yes, I think it's a very interesting topic, and I think it's a very important topic to have.
Okay. So, right to the point. It's a very important topic.
It is. It's very serious, because when you're talking about being whole and you're talking about not bleeding on your children, then, that means that you have to get whole.
Right.
For you not to bleed on your children. So you have to deal with the things that you need to deal with, for you won't hurt your children.
What are we talked about on the show, throughout the month, of different things that what we don't heal from that will bleed off our children. Like when we talked about, when I had the Bowers on here, we were even talking about discipline, where it comes to the fact that it becomes abusive too, right? And if we don't heal from how our parents had raised us, like for example, Kelly was on a couple of weeks ago, and she was saying that because she was physically disciplining her children, and she realized with her older daughter that it was to the point where that's too much, and it became abusive, where she, blacked her daughter eye, and she really got into some stuff, and she thought that relationship was going to be severed. Like she thought she was never going to be able to have a relationship with, but she realized that is something that was transferred to her, so that, for whatever generation, this is how we've always done it. Right? So she realized that wasn't a way to do that with her child.
Right. So that's excellent that she realized that it was a problem, right? That she went too far. And she realized that it was a problem. So it's excellent that she realized it and that she fixed it. Because that she made that U-turn. Because a lot of times we need to make a U-turn, but we don't make that U-turn because we might be comfortable in it. That's something that we used to, so it's challenging for us to make that U-turn. But it's well worth breaking that U-turn.
And I love the fact that because she made that U-turn, her daughter doesn't parent that way. Her daughter talks to her children. Her daughter, have conversation and explain things versus, where we were growing up, my generation, and then y'all generation, like a lot of times, like certain generations, like they don't believe in just having a conversation with kids. Like a lot of times, food, shelter, and clothing is the basic needs of what the children were getting, because that's what they were taught that were needed, right?
Right.
Emotional stability was not something that people talked about. And not in all families. Some families may have been talked about emotional stability or like mental health and things like that. But now, like, that's a hot topic. Like everybody, because we realize how. But the funny thing I think about this is that people say, well, look at me, I turned out fine, like the way my parents raised me.
Well, I know I come from that same generation that Kelly and Art came from, but I didn't get beatings. My mom did talk to me. So it wasn't like, now, if you ask my other siblings.
Oh, you was a sibling that didn't get.
No, like maybe she was tired by the time she had me, or you know what I mean? Because since me and my sisters are like far in age, like one is 15 years apart, one is 6 years apart. So since we were so far in age, maybe by the time she got around to me and my younger sister, that, she didn't beat us like that.
But the older siblings got some stories, huh?
They got some stories to tell, but that's not my testimony. I don't have a story where, I was beat with a extension cord, or I was beat with a switch or anything like that. No, my mom didn't do that to us. I mean, she talked to us, but my mom used to give us this look, right? And that's all we needed was the look.
Right.
And we straightened up with that look.
Yeah.
So we didn't get a lot of beatings.
And then, so even if we're not even talking about like the physical part of it, right? Let's talk about the verbal part. Like, because sometimes whatever the mother or the father, whatever we deal with or don't deal with, we end up either expressing on our children. I had one of the things I had a conversation with a mom, right? And because the father wasn't no longer in the child's life, right? And she hated the father So she started to treat the son, right? Because that's an area of the healing needs to be placed, right? That's a broken area.
Absolutely.
And she didn't realize that everything that she was feeling against the father, she literally started pushing towards the son, where she really didn't have a good relationship with son. Like, she was treating the son like he's some boy, like a dude on the street, like beating him up. And I don't think it was intentional. It is literally just something that it's a learned behavior, and not addressing your hurt and your pain, and you're looking like at this child who looks like their father, who's in your words or your eyes or acting like that father. So now that child is your enemy. And it's like, I don't think any parent wakes up and say, I want my child to be the enemy. Right? I don't think that's not going to happen, unless you're under the influence of something, right? I mean, if you're doing something else, that psychosis kicked in and forget that that's your child. Right. So, but I think because sometimes we don't do a self-evaluation or like reevaluate some things in life. I think it's so important that even in parenting or even just in life in general, kind of take a look at some stuff and see how things are going along and say, okay, there's some adjustments and some changes need to be made or some U-turns, but you have to take a look first.
Absolutely. You have to look at yourself, right? A lot of times we like to look through a window, right? We like to look through a window. We like to look through a window to see what other people have done to us, said to us, or whatever, right? But when we look through that window, we only see them. We don't see ourselves. But we need to take a self-examination of ourselves with the mirror. Look in the mirror and say, why did I treat my child that way? Okay, yes, I don't like his father. He looks like his father, but he's not his father.
Right.
He's my son. And so we need to actually take a look at our own self, not what our mother did, not what our father did, not what our aunt did, not what our coach did, not what our grandparents did. Take a look at ourselves and say, okay, why am I acting this way? And then once I realize why I'm acting this way, what did she do after she realized that she was treating her son that way? Did she change it, or did she continue to be in that same pattern? And then maybe she don't even know how to stop the pattern. So sometimes you need to get help to stop the pattern.
Right.
And as well nowadays, right? It's okay to go to therapy, but back then, in other generations or previous generations, they didn't go to therapy.
Right.
So our parents, our aunts, our uncles, whoever, they did the best they could with what they knew.
Right, absolutely.
And so since they did do the best they could with what they knew, how can we really hold them accountable for that?
I think that's a good point right there. How can we hold them accountable? So even if we don't hold them accountable, okay, so I'm not responsible for how my parents raised me, right?
No.
I'm responsible, I said it all last week, and I think I sent you that clip where it says I'm not responsible how my parents raised me, but I'm responsible how I raised myself, right?
Absolutely.
And how I raised my children. So we can't take back what happened, but we also, I think, we have to come to a place where the way that they raise us don't hurt us in the present. Right? So we don't bring the past, we acknowledge that may not have been the best thing to do. But again, we weren't in their shoes. We weren't in their time, right? Absolutely. So then we have to accept them for who they are and what they gave us, but at the same time, still create some type of boundary so that you don't get back into, because some parents may not realize that they were maybe negligent or anything. Like, some parents just may not realize it. So then you're in your adulthood and the parents are still having that same type of behavior, right? But you're a grown adult and you are able to create a balance or a boundary so that hurt and pain that you dealt with as a child, whether it's verbal, physical, abandonment, rejection, whatever you dealt with as a child, does not hurt you where you are in your adulthood now.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question. So how do you do that effectively? As an adult, right? And even if your parent is still treating you that way now as an adult, how do you deal with that?
I'm grown. I ain't got to talk to you. It's like, nah, it's not that I'm grown. I ain't got to talk to you.
Is that the answer?
That is not the answer. But I think certainly that whole self-evaluation where you say look into the mirror, right? Because when we look into the frame, we're looking at them. We're looking at what happened and all that. But when you look in the mirror, you're looking at yourself and say, okay, this is what I dealt with. So what am I going to do now?
Right.
What is going to make me be whole, complete, and it doesn't penetrate who I am now, right?
Correct.
So one of the ways, I know for me, my healing process was literally looking in the mirror. And for me, it was praying that, because I dealt with abandonment, rejection, and neglect, abuse, and every sort, I used to always blame the people who did it. I used to blame my parents for everything. I used to just be like I love my parents, but I hated them at the same time, right? And that was just growing up into adulthood. But then one day was like, okay, relationships, you have a problem with relationships, right? You don't connect with people for friend level. You don't, your marriage was a hot mess. And I've never had that best friend growing up. And I had to realize my sibling relationship was just distraught. And I was like, I have an issue with relationships. Why do I have an issue with relationships? And what part do I play?
Okay, so once you realized that you had an issue with relationships, right? And you said, what part did you play? How did you move on from that?
So what I did was I did a self-evaluation. I literally wrote down the things that I disliked and then wrote down the things of how I played a part in that. Because I was like, I could no longer just blame people. I'm grown. How do I deal with this? And then I realized that because, what really got me? Because seeing my sibling relationship be broken the way it was, I witnessed that growing up with my mom and her siblings. Her siblings were not close. And that's one of the reasons why I ended up in foster care. They just wasn't close. And I saw our family going down the same route with my siblings. And I was like, oh no, this is not, I desire family, I love family. I just don't know how to bring my family together, because this is something that we've seen generationally of how the siblings, I remember growing up when my mom's siblings was chasing her down the street, beating her up. I remember my mom having a broken leg from her siblings. So when I realized that it seemed like me and my siblings were going down the same route, I was like, it gotta stop. So what I did is I wrote down all the things, and then I said, okay, I prayed. I said, God, this is my desire. So I wrote down, I want my family to be whole and complete, and whatever healing we need to do, I want to do it. So I started on a year journey of just healing myself prior to reconnecting with my siblings. So I started to figure out what I did wrong and why were certain things affecting me the way it was. So I went down that path for a whole year. I prayed about it, and I literally spoke into existence exactly what I want to see, and I started to put in place. So when I finally reached out to my parents, because I still was estranged from my parents at that time, when I finally reached out to them and just talked to them, hey, how you doing, and things like that. And then we wanted to give my mom a 60th birthday party. So that means that I need to connect with my siblings.
So prior to that, you wasn't talking to your parents?
It was like an off and on thing, because there are a lot of things that happened, and it was literally I stayed away because of the hurt and pain.
Okay.
So even when they tried to reach out to me, I would not accept it because there was so much hurt and pain there.
So sometimes they used to reach out to you, but you still rejected them. Okay.
Yeah, and I felt kind of empowered with rejecting them because they rejected me when I was younger. Yo, I'm telling you, that's how the brain was working. It's like,
Absolutely.
Because it's like, oh, so you know what it feels like when somebody doesn't want you. But it wasn't that I didn't want my parents. It was just me, the behavior, my reaction to everything. But once I connected back with my siblings, to give my mom a party, we started her birthday was in March. We started connecting in December. And from there, we just connect. And then I really saw how the power of, if you just check yourself, heal yourself, then your heart can be open to other things. You can be open to possibilities. And I didn't even know if they were going to accept it, though. I didn't know if my parents was going to accept it. I didn't know, but I knew what I wanted. And I prayed about it, and I put that my behavior towards it.
So when you said you put your behavior towards it, what did that look
Who
like?
interviewing here? It's like, go ahead.
I mean,
I knew that's how this was gonna go
I mean,
down.
if you know,
Right.
if we trying to help people,
Yeah.
and you saying that you've been through that, so how did your behavior?
I wasn't so, I was more seek to understand versus to be understood. So basically, I was not looking at the situation as to whenever they say something, or even if something I didn't like, I didn't respond the way I used to, hurt, angry, snapping. I really was like seeking where is that behavior coming from? Why are they acting that particular way? And I sought more to understand people versus, hey, it's me, you hurt me, da 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 da. It was just like, oh, okay, I can see how you see it that way. I can see how you, so help me understand better. It was just really talking it out versus yelling it out. Or me, I'll give people the silent treatment. I will not answer your, I will walk, listen, act like you never existed. But I learned that behavior hurts people too.
Absolutely.
And I just like, I can't do that anymore.
And so you just stopped doing. You just stopped doing it.
Yeah, I stopped doing it because I thought about what outcome I wanted. Like, what is the goal?
Right.
What is the goal?
That part right there. Like, what is the outcome? Where do you want to be at? Because if you didn't stop that, then you would be parenting the same way.
Right.
That, your parents parent you.
Yeah.
So
I think that comes when we talk about we don't. All right. So I said I was having difficulty in this, and I didn't realize it until now I got 4 kids. In the beginning, I thought that me parenting the opposite of my parents was the best thing, right?
Okay.
So I dealt with the abuse, right? And I was like, I'm not going to touch my kids. I'm not going to, verbally, physically, or any type of abuse to my kids, right? But I had to learn over time there's a fine line. There's a line between what's discipline and abuse, right?
Right.
Because I was in fear. Like, I'm like, if I yell at my kids or if I hit my kids, they're going to reject me.
Okay. Good point. So you was looking for your kids for validation.
Yes.
The validation that you didn't get from your parents.
Right.
So a lot of times we use our children to validate what we was missing in our own relationships between our parents.
Right. And we make them responsible for more than
That's right. We make the children responsible. We make the children responsible to heal us. And they wasn't created to heal us.
Ooh. Wow. We make them responsible to heal us. That's good. I think that is so true because I'm like, well, I gave birth to this child's going to love me, this child's never going to leave me. And then we go into that parenting in fear, right? I'm not going to do this because I don't want you to leave me. I'm not going to do that because I don't want you to leave me. And what I realized over time is that you can't shelter your kids from the world, and you also, like, you still have to discipline your kids. Kids need structure, right? Kids need structure, kids need discipline. And the whole, I'm not going to even yell at my kids or anything like that, or even just something to them may seem negative because I just want positive for them and I want them to view me as a positive light. So that comes from not healing from the wounds that was previously there. So it's like a lot of times people either abuse their kids or they let them go too much. Like, but there's a balance in between. And sometimes when you've been dealt with certain things, like you just don't know. You just like, listen, I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to do. That's one of the reasons why I want to have kids, because I didn't want to be like how my mom was, right? But then when I realized, okay, this is it. Donna, you got a child, and you got to start treating her and loving her and nurturing her. But at the same time, I feel like, because now that my kids are teenagers, the 4 of them, I can look in the mirror and I can look back also of some things that I could have did differently in parenting when they were younger. With the girls, with Joshua, we were going through a divorce. With the girls, both parents was deceased, right? So I felt like I had to be the hero, or I had to rescue them from feeling any pain whatsoever. Right? And at the same time, I never dealt with my own pain.
Right.
And to the point where when I got the girls, I said, God, you going to give these broken kids to a broken person? What's wrong with you? Because I viewed myself as I was going through a divorce. Mm-hmm. I was dealing with childhood issues that I never dealt with as an adult. Mm-hmm. And then you give me kids who I'm like, well, what? You got the wrong person for the job, sir. Are you laughing?
And so, yeah, how did that work out? How did that work out?
Well, God told me that, who told you were broken?
Right.
That was the thing.
Because that's the way you saw yourself, but that's not the way he sees you.
Right. And who said these kids are broken?
Absolutely.
Because I saw myself broken, I saw them broken. Ooh.
So you put labels on them, right? Mm-hmm. And you put labels on yourself. Mm-hmm. The labels that God didn't put on you. Right. So a lot of times we do put labels on us and put labels on other people, but that's not who God says we are. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we also have to learn. Like, what do he say about us?
Right.
So he told you wasn't broken.
Yeah.
So once he told you wasn't broken, then what did you do?
I was like, I'm not broken. Like,
you just said, I'm not broken, and it just went like that?
No, I started working on the areas that I thought were broken. Mm-hmm. You know, that healing process. But I think also one of the things that I think I didn't totally work on it though.
Okay.
Because I say that because I put so much into parenting, right? Mm-hmm. I literally put so much effort and so much time, and I invest in parenting where I never even wanted to be a parent, but I'm like, okay, I got this, and I put so much into parenting where I didn't really deal with myself at all. Like, I only dealt with my kids, what they needed, not realizing that they still needed a whole person. But I was literally working on them to make sure that they didn't have the emptiness that I felt.
So do you find yourself doing things like, trying to achieve things and using that as a form of healing? You know what I mean? Like, do you try to accomplish things? Do you try to accomplish things to fill in that void?
Wait, what? I'm gonna need you to clarify that statement.
So, do you try to accomplish or achieve certain things in life to fill that void?
The void
the void of brokenness, or the void of feeling that you're broken. Because a lot of times some people might do certain things, like they might get degrees, or they might get a high profile job, or they might feel as though that success is going to heal that brokenness.
Right. You know what I mean? I get you now. Okay. So this is how I used to do. Because I felt like I came from nothing much. Mm-hmm. I had to prove that I was going to be something. Okay. So it was me.
And who was you trying to prove it to?
Here we go. So at the time, all right, I was trying to prove the people who did not help me that I can make it without you.
Okay.
For example, the family who didn't take me in, for the parents who, I was going to say, listen, you may have left me out in the street to die, but I'm a survivor. I'm going to be able to show you that I could do more than what you thought of me. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. So I tried to do that. And then the crazy thing, how it spews into parenting, I tried to do that with my kids. For example, with my oldest, I wanted her, I was the first one of my mom's children to go to school and become a nurse, right? She was going to be the first grandchild to graduate college, right? So I was putting my desires to prove people wrong, or make them understand, listen, you may have did this, but this is who I am now. So that I really push education. I really push ain't nobody ever going to take things from you. You're going to make sure that you work hard and you earn stuff, because I had to hustle all my life, right? Mm-hmm. So I put that on her where she didn't have to live on the street. She didn't have to want for anything, but I drove her into education so much where I remember at one time probably when she was like 17, she had wrote me a letter, and she said that she was tired of living a porcelain lifestyle. And I was like, porcelain, like, what you mean? I'm trying to give you everything that you ain't never had. But because that need to fill the void of everything that was empty in me, I was like, I was going to fill myself up, and I was going to fill my kids up so much that y'all going to wish that y'all helped me. That's how it was. And it wasn't until I started having the more kids, right? I have the kids, and I started realizing that I could have did parenting a little bit different. So that's what kind of got me on this parenting journey.
Well, I think a lot of times, like I said, like with my mom, you know, with the first 3, she disciplined them like with beatings, right? Because we hear them horror stories on that, right? But the last 3, she didn't. So I guess she might went from one extreme to the other extreme.
Right.
Because the last 3 was probably, people might say, was spoiled than, you know, the first 3.
Right.
But, yeah. So I think as you grow, you start changing. And so it changes your perspective of how you parent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think definitely, because I'm such a big education person. Even growing up, I was still about education because I felt like education was going to be my way out, right? And with my kids,
was it your way out?
Knowledge, yeah. I think knowledge really helped me.
Out of what, though?
That's a good question. What was I trying to get out of?
Yeah, I mean, out of what?
I guess out of poverty. What you guys say, Abdul? Out of the traps of the devil. Abdul said, okay. Out of the traps of the devil.
Knowledge of how our enemy works gives us a good benefit before the situation get there. You know, before the headache or the turmoil gets there, if you have knowledge on it, you'll know how to deal with it better, as opposed to, in other words, it's best to be prepared for a situation than for a situation to come
and not be prepared. Right.
It comes to destroy.
Right.
It comes.
So knowledge is basically helps us with preparation.
Yes.
Yeah. The more you know, the better you do. Well, that's how it's supposed to be, right? The more you know, the better you're supposed to do. If you know a thing, you should be able to do it. But for me, I thought, like, all right, so growing up in the city of Chester, I didn't see anybody, quote unquote, successful. We lived in a project, everybody did, my mom, parents, you know, and I didn't want to be that generational. I didn't want it to be a transgenerational thing. So no matter what happened to me, I was going to make it. Make it meaning that I wasn't going to be recycling everything that has happened in the same spot. Because you know how sometimes, like, you can grow up, say that you grew up in a project and you're living with your parents, right? You become pregnant. You become adult, so now you're living in the projects, and then you have kids, and then your kids are living in the projects, and then it becomes like, I've seen it over and over again, because my grandmother lived there, and then all of her children lived there, and then their children, so I didn't want to be that person.
So you wanted to break that cycle.
Yeah, I wanted to break.
But you didn't see any other cycles that you needed to break.
Right.
So you just wanted to break the cycle of getting out of the projects.
Yeah.
Right. And not getting pregnant young or
Yep.
whatever, right? So that's the cycle that you wanted to break. So that's the cycle that you was focused on. But you still had other cycles in you. Right. Okay.
Well, I knew the cycle of drug and alcohol wasn't not going to be my story.
Okay.
Because of what I've seen. So I knew, listen, I don't want to fool with that, right? Because I've seen it. So that was another cycle. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't, you know, doing drugs or alcohol. And then the cycle of abuse, I wanted to break that as well. So there was like a couple cycles that I wanted to make sure, but my way of breaking the cycle of abuse was to not have any children.
Right.
That was my goal. Like, I ain't doing this. Because I was just so afraid I was going to parent the same way. And I was like, I'm not doing that. But now in my parenting, I find myself, for example, this is what happened the other day. This is crazy. You know, as parents, we deal with so much. Like, particularly, I'm not going to say just single moms or married, because I think everybody has their own challenges, but I can only speak right now in the state that I'm in, as in the season I'm in. I've been married, but now as a divorcee and a single parent, the season I'm in now, it's quite challenging. And challenging is because I have all the hats. Like it's heavy, right? But not just because I'm parenting my kids, but I'm still dealing with me, right? So I'm in school full time. I drive 2.5 hours to school, sometimes 3 hours, to school. And for example, like I'll give my kids chores. And I'm only, because these teenagers, and this is rough right now. I'm trying to tell y'all parents out here, I know y'all dealing with these teenagers, and I'm praying for y'all as y'all pray for me. So I give them chores, and I expect each kid has one chore. It wasn't even nowhere near the kind of stuff I had to do when I was younger, right? Listen, you got the bathroom, you got the kitchen, you got the living room. Come on now. It's the mess that you made. So I'm teaching them, I'm like, now that they're 15 and 17, and I'm just like, listen, this is what you need to do, my standard, you know it. So I come home from a long day of being in school all day and driving, and I come home, and I don't see it done. So I catch myself almost responding the way that my mother did all the time. I would come in the house, and before I say anything, well, why is this not done? Or why is that not done? Like literally start going off. And I'm like, this is not right. Like, but I don't know how my mom felt, but I felt like my mom in that moment. The only difference is I didn't do any, hitting or anything like that. But verbally, I was really upset. And I was like, why this and why that? So then I said, all right, do your chores or whatever. So I went upstairs and I took a deep breath. So I woke up like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I went downstairs and it wasn't done. Oh, Lord Jesus. I literally, you laughing. Because I was so clear on my direction and my expectations, and I felt disrespected. I felt like y'all know what y'all supposed to do. Y'all waited till I went to sleep and then not do what y'all supposed to do. So I was like, all right, so I'm fuming.
So did you wake him up?
So listen, I'm fuming. And now I had a flashback of my childhood of getting snatched out of the bed and all that yada yada, waking up, beaten out of the bed. So I woke him up, but I did it differently. I was upset. I woke up and I bust their doors open though. I did. I bust their doors open. I said, wake up. Like what going on? I said, listen, you guys were supposed to do your chores and it's not done. I need you to get up now and I need you to go take care of it. Because there are several times where I never woke them up. I waited till they got up and told them to do it. But now I said, you know what? I got to put a little fire to this thing. Because obviously you're not hearing me or understanding my expectations than I did before. So I did. I bust their door open and I said, listen, get up now. I can't believe y'all disrespect me like this. Go down here and clean that kitchen. And they got up. So the way that I viewed that is, all right, I felt that I was going to I was ready to knock somebody out, because how dare you disrespect me in my house? I provide all this for you. I'm doing all this to you. But I realized in the midst of me walking up those steps, I had to calm down because I didn't want to be my mom.
So did you ask them why? Did you give them a chance to answer why they didn't do it?
No, let me tell you why I didn't do that.
Okay.
Because previously conversations, when I asked the why question, the answers don't make no good, no sense.
Don't make no good, no sense?
The answers don't make no good, no sense, and the answers infuriated me.
So you ain't want the answer. You just want them to do it.
I just want them to do it because at some point, the talking has to stop, and I need to see action. So if I give you that opportunity, I'm very open with my kids, and they talk a lot. Like, they think they...
Well, I wonder where they get that from.
They negotiate. They can negotiate everything. So, but at this time, I was like, I can't... I'm learning that do not ask the why question all the time. Because you're going to get answers, and then you're going to need another question behind that and another question. Well, you really don't need this thing to be drug out, because my kids will drag it out for all the answers. So, I just don't look at me like that. So, I'm learning... to say, don't say why. Like, this was the expectation, and you didn't hold up to the end of the bargain. I brought them pizza that night and everything, so you know I was hot. Like, it was pizza boxes on the freezer. It was like you couldn't clean your trash up. Like, this what made me feel like I was disrespected, because I was like, I did something extra that night. I brought y'all pizza. I got y'all what y'all wanted. And they didn't even have to ask me. I literally just did it. So then I felt like, well, y'all should appreciate that I didn't make y'all fend for yourself tonight or something like that. And I felt disrespected. But I did control myself enough where I didn't let that anger override my parenting or what I needed them to do, because I didn't want them to hurt them. I just wanted them to understand, like, you just
want them to hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. So you made your point clear, and they understand that. And so was this recent?
Yeah, the other day.
Huh?
The other day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was the other day.
Okay.
That's why it's so
fresh.
It's so fresh.
Because it seems like you're a little hot about it.
Yeah, but if I didn't recognize the broken areas that I dealt with as a child and bringing that into parenting, that will literally tear them up and tear them apart, right?
Right.
And then they will begin to do that when they have children and think that that's how you're supposed to respond to stuff. Like, we always teach our kids, you don't need to respond to that in that type of way. Your reaction is your responsibility. So if I react in a way that's displeasing to God, first of all, and then secondly, disrespectful to my children, how are they going to parent their own children?
Right.
So, but I'm not going to hold you. I was upset. And I felt...
Well, it sounds like you're still upset.
Ooh. No, I felt... But the thing about it, the unique thing, and I think because we have such open communication, me and my kids, like, after they did it the next day, it was like nothing ever happened. Like, they was sweet, they was kind, they was like, I'm getting out of the car. You need me to help with your bag, TT? You need me to do that? Want me to cook dinner tonight? Like,
so you think they was afraid?
I don't know.
Okay. Because that's what it sounds like. Like, I don't know. She done went off on us.
Because they seen stuff they ain't never see before. So they're like,
absolutely.
You want me to cook dinner tonight? You don't have to do everything yourself.
Okay.
But I think it's so important. I brought that up to say that because that can really, it transfer to your kids. What did Dad say? He said, what you don't
face.
Yeah.
What you don't heal.
He said, what you don't transform, then you transfer.
Yeah, you transfer, yeah.
So if I didn't transform my thinking and the way I should approach it, that would have transferred to my children and their children and their children's children. Because I don't think people believe it or not, but it becomes generational after generation after generation, because that's what they're taught and that's what they know. Even if they want different. Because I wanted to parent my kids different, but in that moment I was like, woo. All right, get yourself together, Donna, because you
have to talk to yourself. It ain't gonna be pretty.
It ain't gonna be pretty. I felt like Medea, like I was looking for the purse and everything. Like, what's going on? His kids are so disrespectful. But generally, my kids aren't disrespectful, so I was labeling them something. That moment, I felt disrespected. And why did I feel disrespected? That's your question. I see your face turned up to the side, but why did you feel they disrespect you, Donna? Because I went above and beyond, and they just couldn't do the simple thing of being obedient to that.
I'm not even going to touch that one. I'm not going to touch that.
I ain't afraid.
I'm not going to touch that one.
What?
No.
But no, like, I think if we don't heal ourselves, and that's just
if we don't heal ourselves, yes, we will bleed all over our children. Yes, we will treat them in a way that we don't want to be treated.
Yeah.
And yes, but sometimes, let's talk about this. You talked about generational, right? So sometimes it might skip a generation, right?
Okay. I'm listening.
So why do you think it skips a generation?
So when you say skip a generation,
like you said that, just for instance, like my father was an alcoholic, right? But none of us, are alcoholics.
Right.
So did we break that curse? or will it go down into another generation? Because of, like, sometimes you say, oh, they act like Aunt so-and-so, and they never met Aunt so-and-so.
Right. That's a good question. So when we think about certain things, like, so there is a biopsychosocial, right? Biopsychosocial. So like biologically, genetics, right? Genetics does play a role in it. So genetics, but here's the thing about genetics, like you can have a genetic trait or something, right? But the environment causes that trait to be pretty much nurtured or cared for or able to grow, like soil and dirt, right? Flowers. So if the environment is conducive for that trait to grow, not in all things, but a lot of traits, like when we deal with the psychosocial stuff, if the environment is allowed that to grow, that's when it will be passed down. So like you can have, like, for example, when we think about heart disease and things like that, like, okay, obesity, heart disease, diabetes, all those things, right? You can have a family history of diabetes and you never get diabetes. True. Type 2, when we talk about type 2.
So what changed that didn't get passed down? So our lifestyle changed. So our diet changed. Yeah. Our exercise changed. Because even being well, that's also a part of being well. You know what I mean? Our physical is a part of being well. Right. Like, it's like, what are we putting in? Are we putting in a whole lot of sugar? Are we not exercising? We're not moving. Right. Like, that plays a big part also. Right. In how we react to things.
Definitely, because our body is built from chemicals, right? So a little bit of this, not enough that, too much of that, really does change the dynamic of our brain. And it's science, and it's proven that, you know, we have our serotonin, we have our dopamine, you know, things that make us happy, the hormones that makes us happy, the hormone makes us sad and relaxed. So if you have a little bit too much of this and not enough of this, then that's an environment that can thrive now. Like, so that genetic trait or genetic cursor can now thrive in that environment.
So I have a question. So what are some of the steps that people can take to wholeness? Okay, yes. One is self-aware. Be self-aware, right? To be self-aware, right? Taking a look at yourself, right? And what are some of the other ways?
I think, and once you take a look at yourself, come up with a plan of how you're going to address this stuff. Because you can look at yourself all day and be like, yeah, I'm the issue, but that don't mean nothing.
Correct. What are you going to do about it once you look at yourself? Yeah. Once you figure out, I do this because of.
Right. So then you have to take those steps. Find help. You know, therapy is one of the biggest things out there, and I think there's different type of therapies. You know, there's cognitive therapy, there's medication therapy, there's like all different types of therapy depending on what you need. But I also think right now, because there's such a waiting list for therapists everywhere, that tap into your faith base.
Absolutely.
Know? Tap into your circles, tap into your mentors, tap into somebody and say, I need help. Listen, it's me, God, standing in the need of prayer.
So is that where we start? Do we start with God?
Yeah. You know what? I think so.
Okay. So once we acknowledge, or once we face, or once we process what happened to us, or our wound, our pain, our trauma, right? Then our next step will be like, God, help me. Whatever the issue is, right? Help me with my abandonment. Help me with my rejection. Help me with people misusing me. Help me with those areas. And show me who I need to go to talk to.
There you go. I like that. That's a good plan. That's more than a 12-step program. That's
more than a 12-step program.
that's a Tracey step program. Let's go.
Okay. And so now that we're self-aware, and now that we have, you know, asked God, and, you know, he shows us where to go to, who to talk to. What are some of the other steps we can take?
Well, I see you got a list there, so I want you to tell us.
You know, I mean, we need to start being balanced.
Right.
Because a lot of times we taking the weight of, like you said, Okay, you were saying with your parenting, and you in a season now that you divorced, singled, and you're parenting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the generation that I grew up in, we had community.
Mm-hmm.
We had a village.
Right.
So can you tap into your village that you don't feel so burdened with the weight? Because you said the weight is so heavy.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have a village that can help you?
Now I do.
Okay.
I used to reject again because
You used to reject because of what? Because you wanted to control what was it? Did you want to control the situation?
yeah, and I didn't want nobody to disappoint me, or I didn't want to.
You didn't want to feel a rejection if they say, like if you call somebody and say, hey, the kids is older now, but if you call somebody and say, hey, can you watch the kids? And that would be feeling, and they say no, that you
Because and when I first got the girl, that's what happened. I had no village, I had nothing. So then, but I was burnt out. I was like, I was sick. So then I started to say, okay, so who are my people? Who are my village? And really not to be so prideful of asking for help.
So you had to identify your village.
Yeah.
So we had to acknowledge it, process it, ask God, acknowledge our village.
Acknowledge the village.
Okay.
What's next on your list?
What's next on my list? We also have to have emotional intelligence.
Oh, okay. Most people don't talk about that emotional intelligence.
Right? So with the emotional intelligence, we need to be aware and we need to be able to maintain, right? What we feeling, how we feel, why we feel that way.
Right.
Because we're talking about wholeness, but the wholeness is just not like we get it just one day.
Oh,
It's a journey. It's a lifelong journey.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
We're always going to be working on something.
Absolutely.
Because seasons change.
Yeah.
Things change.
And life be lifing.
And life be lifing. So as life is lifing, right? Those are some of the steps that we can take.
I think you just really said something that I don't want to overlook, that wholeness is a journey. That wholeness, because of season change, we change, we grow, we mature, we perceive things differently.
Right.
And
because you're not, when I met you when you was like 22?
21. You met me at 21.
How old are you now?
43.
Okay. You're not the same 21-year-old that I met back then.
Right.
Right?
Because life was life.
Life has been lifing. You have been through some stuff.
Right.
And you're different now at this chapter.
Yeah.
So even like at 58, you'll be different.
Yeah.
So as we go on this journey, we'll recognize stuff that needs to change, stuff that no longer has our use. We don't need it no more.
So are you saying wholeness is not necessarily a destination, but a journey?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wellness is not.
Right.
It's a journey.
It's a journey.
That's
okay. Listen to
evolving. An evolving
yeah,
journey.
because listen to this. When you just said wellness, right?
Yeah.
And wellness in our physical body. We just can't eat right one day.
Right.
And we well. It's a journey. It's an ongoing process.
Right. That's true. Yeah.
It's an ongoing process.
And be okay with the ongoing. We have to be okay with the season change and different things, because sometimes we get stubborn and stuck in the one area, and we think that, oh, it's supposed to be this way, stay this way, nothing else needs to change. But
yeah, that's not how life goes.
Yeah.
Life is always changing. It's always progressive. We serve a progressive God.
Right.
So why wouldn't our life change? If he's always moving, we always should be moving. We should always be evolving.
Right.
We should never be staying the same.
Right.
We should always try to grow.
So if somebody say, you don't act the same, we're like, oh, good, thank you.
Yeah, good, thank you.
I think that's good. All right, what else you got? What
and
else?
a lot of times people might say but they didn't change. That's why they think that's why they think you changed.
Right.
Because they still at that same spot. And you have evolved.
Right. So that's good. So what else?
So
Listen, I'm intrigued. I'm like,
you intrigued?
I'm like, well, let's see. Knowledge is power. Come on with the knowledge.
and then we also have to, self-care.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when people talk about self-care, they always talking about, for women, get your hair done, nails done. That is the basics. What do you think about that?
I think it's true. I think that self-care is more an internal thing, not necessarily an external thing. Because you can dress up the outside and your inside is just as rotten as a nasty apple core that's been sitting out on a corner for weeks.
That's right. So self-care is taking care of
Yourself.
your emotional and your mental and your physical well-being.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Definitely agree. Because I remember there's times where it appeared that I was well.
Yeah.
But I wasn't, because I didn't take care of all those things you just mentioned.
Right, because we can dress this outer shell up, and nobody will never know.
Right.
But then when you go home, what are you doing?
Right. And that falls though into parenting though, because sometimes we think that if we give our kids, the best sneakers or, this, then the other, but we're not dealing with their emotions. We're not dealing with their mental. We're not dealing with actually holistically parenting, that then they become adults with the same attitude and the same thing as if I just buy myself this, I'm gonna be fine. Or if I do this, I'll be fine. Because sometimes in parenting, we try to do that to our kids. Like, we're like, well, I'm gonna give you the greatest this and the game system, this, then the other. I feel like that's just buying your kids. You're just buying the kids or shutting them up. It's a couple different ways that you could go about it. Or just really trying to please.
But maybe that was the only thing that parent at that time knew.
Right.
Was to buy. Because maybe they didn't have when they was growing up.
Yeah.
So they figured their kids was going to have everything, the latest everything. Because they had to, maybe shop, like at Goodwill or something like that. So they feel as though that, when I have my child, I'm going to give them everything. I'm going to give them the best, the name brands and all that. But like you said, that's not healing them. That's not going to help them. I mean, you could get them that. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. But also realize when you give them that, also realize that you need to give them more than just that.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to tap into that emotional side of them. Like, ask them how was their day. And just don't take, it was fine. Don't take that as,
right,
an answer. Dig deeper.
I think that's good. Like you said, like we, as adults, we try to mask and we try to dress up things. And if we don't stop doing that, then our children will learn how to do that as well.
Absolutely.
All right, what you got for us next before we out of here? Look, the producer, he got his pen. He's still writing. He writing down. He's like, what else?
How about how do we grow? How do we grow?
Right.
Because in that journey, of wholeness and wellness, how are we growing? Yeah. What do we do to grow? What do you do to grow?
I do a lot. It's like
yeah, like
so I do a lot of. So for me to grow, I read.
Yeah, right? She reads a lot.
I read. And I read not just like, I'm not the type of reader that would read like romantic novels and things like that. I literally read to learn. Like for me, the way my brain works, it has to edify me, right? Like I can't sit and watch mindless television. Like I literally got it because I'm going to be trying to problem solve everything in thing. And I can't watch no scary movies because I'm going to be rebuking Satan the whole time in the movies and y'all ain't going to want me in the movies. So okay. I read, I write, I go to conferences, like I invest in myself. So, I love parenting. So I'm going to parenting conference. I'm going to grief conferences. I'm going to leadership conferences. I invest in myself because parents are leaders. So for me to grow, it is through my experiences and also seeking out knowledge and information. Okay. And that's in various ways. Right. And that's one of the things that I teach my children to do too. Like I'm not the type of parent that's just going to give you an answer. I said, girl, you got the internet, you better figure it out. I don't, because I feel like now that they're the age that they are, you know, when they was younger, they wasn't even allowed to touch anything. But now that they're the age, I want them to do research, because when they go to school and in college, you gotta do research. So you gotta find valid research things. Like when we talk about health, I always have them going to CDC, you know, because I'm a nurse. So I'm like, listen, the CDC, this is where you're going to get the valid information from. So it's literally seeking out and going after information, not believing that things are just going to come to you. So that's how I grow. Being around the good people, you know, people who are at a higher level than me in certain areas, so that I can glean off of them. And then I can learn that, and I can become, you know, either there or even to another level, right? And then another way I grow though also is having people in my circle who are not where I am yet, but they learning from them as well, of where they are and the things that they're going through or whatever. And it helps me either say, hey, I'm make sure I ain't gonna do that. And then also teaching them how to do something differently helps me grow as well.
Okay. That's good. That's good stuff.
All right, so I think we about wrapped up. How many we get? We almost got them all, but we'll bring you back again. All right.
She got jokes.
So to sum it up, so basically what we're saying is that wholeness is not a destination, it's a journey. And it's so important for parents to become whole or to be on a wholeness journey so that our children can then continue their wholeness journey as well, right?
Correct.
Because they're going to get hit with stuff too in life. And if they learn how to respond or react to in a proper way, use proper coping mechanisms and stuff like that we teach them, then they can not have to fight the things that we fought, but whatever challenge they come, they should be able to handle it or know how to get the resources so that they can handle it.
Absolutely.
All right. Do you have anything to say to the people before we leave? This was a good conversation. Like, I always enjoy talking to you. Now, you know, growing up.
Growing up what?
Growing up, it was a little bit harder because you was just like.
Was I?
Yeah. But I was also the stubborn kid, so you know, I was a little hard and a little rough behind the edges. But really, I love having a conversation with you because you ask a lot of questions, but you bring it to so that we get clarity and understanding. Like, you don't ask questions just to ask questions. Like, you literally bring it for clarity and understanding. So one, I answer my own questions, and two, the people can really understand what we're actually talking about. Because a lot of things can get missed when there's a lot of things said. But taking a pause and reflecting and restating, I think is very important so that we can get clarity and understanding. So I love you for that. That's good stuff. So do you want to say anything to the people?
No, I think I said everything I needed to say tonight.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And we look forward to having you again.
Okay.
And again, if anybody is dealing with any areas that on your wholeness journey that you need help, you know, again, we said go to God, go to your faith-based community, seek a therapist, go to your primary care doctor. They have the resources for all the therapists, right? And if not, go to your social services office. There are resources out here that we actually can tap into. So, but don't just think that you're alone. You're the only person dealing with something. We're all dealing with something all the time. Just because I'm not dealing with what you're not dealing with does not mean that I'm not dealing. As we just stated, wholeness is a journey. So along your journey, and you need resources, make sure you tap in. Find a mentor, you know. As we said first, pray to God and see who you need to talk to. And then once you get that information, find a resource, find a mentor, find somebody that really can help you navigate or help you build some good coping mechanisms, some coping skills so that you can heal from those areas, because we don't want to bleed over our children. We want to make sure our children have the best of the best. And that means physically, socially, economically, mentally, you know, financially, in every area of our children. I'm still not saying that you need to be a perfect parent, because there's still no such thing as perfection. But what I'm saying is that we need to be able to heal ourselves so that our children don't have to deal with what we dealt with or be in somebody's therapist's office because it's something that we lacked on or something that we didn't address as they were younger. Mm-hmm. So tune in next week again. Thank you for joining Parenting with a Purpose, where we strive to bring the nobility, responsibility, and beauty back into parenting. We'll see you here next Thursday at 7 p.m. Hi everybody, my name is Donna, also known as Donna Janel, CEO and founder of Parenting with a Purpose. Our strive here at the podcast is to reach every home, whether it's single moms, married, single dads, whatever it is, foster parents, whatever, just bringing the ownership and responsibility and nobility back into parenting. Get comfortable with uncomfortable conversations. All parents need some help and guidance, and I'm just here to be a guide.